Welcome to the last segment of Hoods, Wicker Park Edition. I'm your host, Katie Berg. You've seen the entertainment and fashion sides of Wicker Park. Now it is time to explore one of the most important characteristics of the neighborhood, its art. Wicker Park is constantly drawing in up-and-coming artists. Let's take a look at one of the galleries that houses many of these creative minds.
We focus on local Chicago artists. That's really kind of our forte. We do a lot of emerging artists. Many of our artists actually live and work in the neighborhood. And then we kind of just want this to be a cultural space where we do all kinds of events and programming, from gallery rentals, weddings, performances, music performances. We do a big outreach for nonprofits. We really think it's good to engage the nonprofits. They have their fundraisers here, and it's great for them too, because anything that they sell at their event, we do a kickback to their organization. We have a really range of work that we represent. We don't want to be a gallery that you come in and you feel like you can't touch anything, you can't talk. We wanted to have something where anybody comes in, they would have something that they could take home. So we do have a large range of originals that are very high priced, but also prints of that work starting as low as $30. The owners of the gallery, they really wanted to make sure that art is accessible to the community and young collectors especially. That way they can have something to take home. We change out our exhibits fairly often. We have like probably 6 major exhibitions throughout the year. And those run for about 5 to 6 weeks. When those shows are up, we have our other artists represented on the walls. And so we'll change those as pieces sell, as we get new work in from different artists. We like to keep it fresh. We also get really high-end clientele from downtown, the Gold Coast, because Wicker Park is a shopping area, so they like to come out here and get more of a neighborhood vibe. I definitely think we're special compared to other art galleries in Chicago because we really do focus on the local Chicago talent. Many of the galleries, especially in the River North or West Loop area, they bring artists in from like the East Coast, the West Coast, very mainstream artists almost, but we really focus on a lot of the emerging talents. Wicker Park used to be a destination where all the artists lived because there was affordable rent. It was like kind of a community setting where a lot of people, artists like work together, they would be able to kind of spin their ideas off one another. I guess since it's gentrified, a lot of people have moved out. However, there is still a strong presence of art here. The neighborhood's definitely a lot of more corporate names are coming into the area. It's really developing. It didn't used to be just as nice of a neighborhood. And as that happens, I think art will become more important and it really makes quality of life better. And we're hoping to make sure that we are that go-to gallery for everybody to see what's happening.
Welcome back. In studio, we have Ryan Tynan, an advertising art direction student here at Columbia. Thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. Alrighty, can you just tell us a little bit about your major, what you do?
So my major is basically, it's like art and design, but there's always like a creative mind behind all the ideas for like commercials and advertising in general. So that's my major. And today I brought some prints in from Jackson Young Gallery.
This is in Wicker Park, right?
Yes, in Wicker Park. This artist is Tay Tioli, and he is an artist he was born and raised in Salt Lake City, and he like travels around the country to promote his art, and he's a self-taught artist.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and he works mainly with mixed media, and he plays around with film and TV actually.
What drew you to these pictures?
Well, basically, I was like looking through
art pictures. Yeah. They're not pictures.
Well, they're obviously very interesting.
Right.
He like they're very pop culture. There's pop culture references, and he works a lot with watercolor and like ink, like pen and ink, which is basically like his MO, his main thing he does. But he also likes to play around with like acrylics, oil. He does tattoos.
Oh wow, really?
He does graffiti, charcoal sculpture. and stuff like that. Actually, about I think it was a month or two ago, in Jackson Young, he had his whole exhibition was there. So yeah, he had sculptures and stuff like that laid out in the gallery for them.
Would you say that's a adequate representation of the surrounding community?
Yeah, for sure, because his stuff is obviously very different. So basically what the gallery does is they like to incorporate many different types of art. So yeah.
And what would you say about the art in Wicker Park?
In general, it's very diverse. It used to be a very like artsy neighborhood. It's slowly, I don't want to say dying out, but in a way it kind of is. So art is becoming more important like as the years go by.
So they're trying to like keep it alive,
Yeah,
would you say?
basically.
How are they trying to do that? What are ways?
For instance, if you like go to Wicker Park and walk around, you will notice the art. Like there's graffiti on buildings. A lot of the shops, even if it's like a coffee shop, they always display art, and they just try to keep like the artists alive in any way possible.
Speaking of graffiti, do you think graffiti is a form of art?
Yes, for sure.
And why do you think that? What?
I think if you ask that question to most people nowadays, they will tell you yes. It's not how it used to be. But basically, like if you look, like it's not an easy thing to do, graffiti. So it's kind of like it's very commercial. It can be very artistic.
You think it's been taken away from like the gang symbols?
Yes,
and it's taking more of a different turn?
Exactly.
And how do you think that's representing in Wicker Park? Like what are some of the things that you see just walking around?
It's very urban. So if you go to Wicker Park, it's not like going downtown Chicago. It's very hip and trendy. And so when you like look and see these big like graffiti murals on the side of the wall, it gives you a sense of like what Wicker Park really is all about.
Okay. And so Wicker Park's modern, that's what you'd say.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like what they're trying to push out into the other neighborhoods? Do you think they're going to try
like
to?
it used to be a really like ghetto neighborhood, but it's becoming more of like a young and hip neighborhood. So basically, like with art, they're taking it and they're trying to like spread it throughout their community, and also Bucktown and the neighborhoods surrounding them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what drew you to Wicker Park? What do you like about this art?
Well,
Being an art student.
Yeah, I am a fan of like all types of art, so I can appreciate all types of art. Basically, what drew me to like graffiti art and like this kind of art is this is kind of a hard question. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I know it's open.
Hard questions. Basically, like how you can play around with art. Like you can take all these mediums and put them all together to create something that's different and interesting to look at, and that is what draws me into like artists like this.
Well, when you started off art, what brought you to art yourself? Like what inspired
I've always
you?
like since I was really little, I've always used to like draw and paint, and I never thought it could be something I could do until the past couple years, to be honest. In fact, my senior year of high school is when I realized like I think I want to be an artist any way possible. So personally, I like playing around with experimentation in film and in art, like mixed media like him. So, yeah.
Would you say Wicker Park has kind of influenced your taste, your style? Is it?
Not exactly, but I would say visiting Wicker Park and being there has made me realize more like how important art is.
And how important would you say art is for the community?
For the community of Wicker Park is very important. In general, it is. I think it needs to be more important, if that makes sense. Like it needs to be not as underground. It needs to like rise up.
How do you feel that they can make it come up
with galleries
to surface?
Yeah, with galleries like Jackson Young and.
Is that the only one that is in?
No,
Wicker
there's
Park,
a lot of galleries in Wicker Park. I want to say, I forget the exact number, but this is one of the bigger ones, the main ones. It's a very contemporary art gallery. But there's some art galleries that are very like grungy and like more underground, if you will. So yeah.
Would you say that's how the art gallery? Do you think art galleries are leaning more towards going that way? They're more modern nowadays. They're not doing the classical.
I think so, because it's easier to do that. It's a lot of like young artists are doing that. They're like creating their own shops and they're doing stuff like that.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, would you say art in Wicker Park is being gentrified?
Yes, because like what is happening in Wicker Park basically is there's not as many stores that are like small businesses that are like mom and pop kind of things. So like when across the street there's like a very like eclectic boutique of like eyewear, and then across the street there's like lens crafters. Like it'll show you like the comparison. So when there's like an art store or an art gallery like this, it makes you appreciate it more. But art in general in Wicker Park is not as gentrified as like the other companies and businesses. So I think that's a good thing. So.
Right. Yeah. What is another form? Do you see more of like this artwork coming too? The whole like artists also being more like well-rounded. It seems like art nowadays, people just are, because the graffiti, like you said, is becoming art. Like, is there any other art, modern art that we do not know about? Maybe you want to shed some light on?
Well, for instance, like for this guy, he's very a well-rounded artist. So I think more artists nowadays are becoming well-rounded because they're not focusing on, oh, I'm a painter.
Right.
I sketch. Like I'm just in film. Like you want to be you want to know all about art in general. So Taitioli, for example, does that. So we see when you look at his work, it's not like original. I mean, no, it is very original. It's not like very like tied down. Does that make sense?
It's open, just like our 21st century. Very open to things.
It's more modern,
right?
Because you wouldn't see stuff like this like 30 years ago, for example.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Ryan.
Thank you.
It's been very enlightening. Oh, that's all the time we have for the interview portion, and thank you again for being here. Now we move on to an underground artwork that most people don't take into consideration.
People get tattoos for millions of different reasons. Some people just want to feel instant change. Some people like the pain. Some people have an event that happened in their life that they want to commemorate, or someone that passed away, or to attract something in their life. And some people just get it for aesthetics. I had a friend of mine who owned this building years ago, and he had a space here that was not being used. The front was actually a really cruddy eBay store, so people had to walk through the eBay store to get to me. But eventually I took over the whole space and built out. When I was thinking about names, I just wanted something that I liked. Metamorph, by definition, is someone or something that can change their appearance or change someone else's appearance. Most tattoo shops have reputation. They used to have the reputation of being kind of shady and scummy, I guess. I think we're one of the cleanest shops and good customer service. We have health regulations, all kinds of different licensing that we have to keep up with and adhere to. Learning to be an artist, you should apprentice under someone, which means you basically trade skills and knowledge and education for cleaning toilets, scrubbing floors, answering phones, doing whatever you have to do. The process for tattooing, that someone will come in or email or call, and they'll have an idea. It may be specific, it may be real loose, and we help them develop an idea and think about what's the best option for this possibility. We want them comfortable with the whole process. We'll do a drawing if necessary, or we'll replicate the image. We'll place a stencil on the person and see if they like it, and at that point we can make an appointment with them or tattoo them right there. Best and the worst thing about this, having this position, is being the owner. I really love that. I don't want to expand. This is good enough for me.
As you have seen today, Wicker Parks is a host location for aspiring and developed artists. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon for the Wicker Park edition of Hoods. Be sure to tune in later today at 1:30 when we will be exploring another neighborhood of Chicago.